Hello all, I hope you're doing well today. A common theme on this channel is that chaos is the precursor to order. That's a universal law. It works the same in our personal lives as well as on the civilizational level. We see this throughout time, and it seems to me at the moment we're entering a state of chaos, if not already fully embedded in it. Now, I believe that this is the precursor to the next great man of history coursing through. I believe the next great man of history will be European-wide. I don't think it can be on the level of the nation state. That's not really going to achieve very much. It might even be Western-wide, as the Aussies, the Canadians are in the same boat as us. The Americans are too, but they're doing their own thing over there, and very often think that they're detached from it all with their USA in charge of the world, your limeys are pathetic and poor. But the problem is we all face the same problems, and eventually we're going to see, look, we have a shared struggle for Western civilization. So hopefully they'll come round too, maybe after MAGA. But anyway, the point I'm making here is, while the future may well be full of hope, the present is rough. I've said this before on the second channel, actually. It's part of life, this. The second channel is all about personal and spiritual transformation. And one of the common themes there is you have to embrace suffering as part of your personal life and your spiritual life, especially if you're going to grow. And I know throughout my life I've had very hard times, as I'm sure we all had, in different ways, whether it's a relationship breaking down or bereavements or personal struggles or cultural issues, whatever. You can really get hit hard by them and just not know which way to go at times. But you realise as you grow, being lost is the precursor to being found. Not being able to find the answer is sometimes necessary, because sometimes there isn't one. Sometimes you need to grow through the pain, and then you look back and you've got a wisdom that no book, no other man can teach you. That you've learned, your own heart has given you through the experience of pain. And it's wonderful to say these things. You sound very bright and clever, but it's harder to live them. And as I say on the second channel, I say these things myself, but when the next challenge comes around, it's hard, and you don't want to step into that cold water. It's icy, it shocks your system, you feel afraid, it's difficult. And then you realise, it's tough to embrace the hardships of life, and it is never easy. We have to muster the courage and step into the unknown. And the point I'm making here is, this is where we're at in England, or Britain at the moment, arguably Europe too. And especially in Britain with the state of our government. I mean, it's just insanity at this point. After the reshuffle, we are led by radical leftist ideologues, And it's interesting because this is how the Blairite dream has ended. Not with a bang, but with an army of human resource Karens gleefully devouring the soul of England. And it's painful. It's horrible. You're worried. I was saying to my dad last night, I had a quick chat about the reshuffle, and saying, Keir Starmer, as bad as he is, the Starminator, of course, don't think he's got many fans out there. But if he falls down the stairs and has a bad knock, that means David Lammy's Prime Minister. We go from the Staminator to the Laminator. And God knows what he's going to do. I mean, he's been screaming for reparations and stuff. He's a complete ideologue. And again, on top of that, if you criticise him, I'm sure it'll be seen as racist, so they'll just crack down on any criticism of him. Ditto with Shabnam Mahmood, new Home Secretary. And you can't really say anything other than, I'm sure she'll do a fantastic job. She's a strong, independent woman. We all love that. And I'm sure she'll be fair and balanced when it comes to immigration, especially illegal immigration, and the grooming gangs too. And we almost have to say that to keep the SWAT team at the door away from the door, for another 24 hours. So my point is, things are just desperate. They really are. And this is an odd segue, I know, but I was looking at some of the response from the political mainstream, and it made me think of football. Now, I don't really watch football anymore. I keep up to date with the scores, but I just can't bear it. I think it's another avenue through which the liberal system uses to brainwash people. And it's a tragedy, because football's part of our cultural history, but it's just another thing that's being swallowed by the system. Now, again, one thing that annoys me about it is they increasingly slot in women and women's football, which I don't think anyone's particularly interested in. How are women going to have any understanding of the men's game? But that's a side video. But the point is, even the male pundits who played the game at the top level, if you listen to them speaking about a game, they offer no analysis at all. I've been watching football all my life, and they say things like, Well, Dave, today it was a great game. It was great. And 4 goals. And I've got to say, Dave, I've got to say, 3 of them could be contenders for goal of the month. They really could. They were that good. They were that good. And I'm thinking, that's not analysis. Like, I could have said that. What do you need to pay this guy 40 grand a month for that for? But my point is that when it comes to the end of the season, you realise they're just talking drivel. Like, their predictions are never right, they don't offer any insight, and they're supposed to be the, quote, experts, that are guiding you into what the game really is, giving you the inside track, and they never do. Then you realise, look, this is all just drivel. It's trickle-down liberal modernity disguised as sport. It's meant to comatose the brain of the zombified Englishman all the more and make them think that, it's engaging in our great game, our great culture. It's not. Anyway, my point is here that I've noticed a complete crossover now with our elite political commenters. These people are presented as if they're the elite commentariat in the country. The people who can really see what's going on. Because as stupid rubes can't. Well, here's Andrew Marr. What would you say? He's the leading voice, probably, in political analysis in the country. He said this when the Labour Party came into power.
Well, a couple of sources of optimism, because I completely agree with the questionnaire. We have to be optimistic looking forward. I think just having a stable government that will be there for 5, maybe 10 years, who knows, but with sort of ordinary, down-to-earth, serious people talking like the rest of us in charge of the government, and a plan that doesn't shift very much for investment, is going to mean a wall of money coming into this country from around the world. You look at the chaos going on in the continent, particularly in France. You look at the chaos likely ahead in the United States. And suddenly, for once, for the first time in many of our lives, actually Britain looks like a little haven of peace and stability. And that in itself is going to draw money into this country.
Now, if you don't understand globalist liberalism and modern Britain, it's hard to understand why such a clever man with such experience can be so naive, deluded and foolish. But the reality is these people live in a completely different world to us. They live in the liberal elite bubble of London. They believe in eternal Blairism forever because in their world that is suitable for them. They can welcome everyone from the world, all the clever people with all the money and all this sort of stuff. But on the ground level, that they despise, they have no understanding of the real state of the country and no connection to it. These people just cannot think outside of the liberal frame. One, because that frame serves them and their own power. But number 2, because they've fallen into this ideological belief system that anything outside of it is evil. So if you get the most milquetoast, bland copy of Blairism, to them, that's going to save the day. Line go up politics. Economy's going to be good, guys. We can be even more welcoming and have an even better multicultural Britain. The bigots won't like that, but let's show them what for. They don't seem to realise that the bubble can't grow and grow forever. They want it to because, again, they're the beneficiaries of the present system. But eventually it's going to burst. In fact, I think it already has burst. And more people across the country are realising that. It even makes me think of Peter Hitchens as well, who, to be fair to him, did warn about the Labour government. But he was saying, for the past, 20 years, we need to destroy the Tory party. And when it came to the crunch, oh no, you need to vote for the Tory party. So even the great analysts on the other side aren't offering a clear message. And the one glimmer of hope left in the country comes in the shape of Reform, who basically have an open goal at the moment, but really don't seem to be that impressive. Number one, they're going to feed back into the liberal system, in my view anyway. But this is from one of their conferences recently where one of their number decided to sing a song.
I'm an insomniac, I'm an insomniac, staring at the ceiling, waiting for my phone to switch off.
That's a Dame Andrea Jenkins, by the way. She's a mayor of Greater Lincolnshire or something like that. But who greenlit this? I mean, all Reform have to do at the moment is seem normal and stable and sane. And instead they're letting their members get up like mums drunk off wine on their Butlins holiday thinking that they can relive their Madonna years. And when you put all this together, it just makes us look a bit stupid, doesn't it? I mean, we have this great country behind us, this wonderful tradition, but we don't seem to be able to reawaken it. It's just cheapened and turned into this sort of X Factor style politics. Talking of song lyrics though, I was listening to the Kinks, Living on a Thin Line, these wonderful lyrics which I think sum up our present condition. All the stories have been told of kings and days of old, But there's no England now, there's no England now. All the wars that were won and lost somehow don't seem to matter very much anymore. I find that last line the most poignant. Somehow don't seem to matter very much anymore. If you go and listen to the original song, it's pitched perfectly in that sort of Middle English bland way, which is very fitting for what the songwriter's trying to get across, which I think is this idea of blandness, detachment, that we can almost feel in England. And there is something here that we have lost touch with our history. You know, it really does seem like another world. Now, I think this is actually very prescient lyricism from Ray Davies, is it? Singer-songwriter in the Kinks? I think it is. But the point I'm getting at is this passing of England has almost been called for, of course, by the Celts and the Europeans and stuff. They hate England for other reasons, although I do think that might slightly be changing now as we do disappear. But what I mean, even the English themselves, you know, the trendy London liberals, the artsy types, the Fabian socialists, even the average person, you know, they still functioned on the assumption that they'll always be in England. You know, was it Vera Lynn who sang that, you know, during the war? Well, it turns out there might not be, you know. It's starting to be eradicated. And when the ground falls away, you don't know who you are, you know. So it's be careful what you wish for, because we assumed, especially the boomer generation looking at their parents, oh, these people are square, you know, they live by these outdated, obsolete traditions. We're looking to a new world now. Well, that's all well and good, but if you forget your own foundations, if you rip them apart, the whole structure will fall down. And that's where we're at now. And it seems to me that the only place left existing is what I call Deep England. Now, if we were to give Deep England a physical location, it would of course be the Shire. But it's more than the physical. Deep England really is a spirit. And I think it's very important to recognise spiritual state is absolutely paramount with regards to a nation, a continent, and a civilization. But we don't like to think about these things in this day and age. Number one, because we're living through the globalist liberal frame of a modernist rationality, of new atheism, if you like, that mythology, the metaphysical has no meaning. Once you eradicate the metaphysical, of course, your civilization loses its fire. Everything becomes the scientific or turns into scientism. But more importantly, I think in a popular sense, we don't want to look at ourselves. You know, and this is where the real growth is. Like I said at the top of the video, you want to grow in a personal level, you have to be willing to look at yourself. So while we're right to look at globalist liberalism and call out what it's doing, you know, the ideology, the propaganda, how it's forced by this globalist liberal economic power, which really is turning everything into the material, turning the whole aim of our life and the health of our nation into, you know, how much money you earn is your worth in this world. And GDP is the ultimate barometer of the nation. How attractive your nation is to investors is all that matters. This isn't England. I'm not saying these things don't matter on a material level, but they're not England. And the point is here that let's just say we had this idealised government that you sometimes hear people calling for, and we had remigration, and the economy was taken care of, and things got a lot more sensible. We re-implemented good values, whether they're rooted in the church or whatever, but families, loyalty to one another, community. Well, even if we had all of that, it's going to be meaningless without that spiritual fire within us, without Deep England calling forth, which is what made England in the first place. So this is the very core point I'm getting at with Deep England, in that we can criticise the world, but if everything was made better, are we going to be able to bear what the English tradition is when we've had no initiation into it ourselves? You know, and this is the real challenge of the age. Just like on the personal level, your spiritual state will get worse when you refuse to look reality in the face. We've all seen that, whether it's in our own life or someone we know and love's life. Let's just say, hypothetically, a drinking problem, and the person doesn't want to admit it, you know, and they keep drinking, and they refuse to acknowledge it's a problem, because it's hard to acknowledge it's a problem. You feel like an idiot if you admit it. You feel embarrassed, you know, so they go on and on and on, and then other people don't want to get involved, and they think, well, this is life. You know, but really they're just drinking themselves into the grave. And of course, this is a metaphor for our state as English people, as England. And I think I would, you know, further this out to Europe and even the West. You know, at what point do we say it's not about consuming anymore, but creating and aligning and building something deeper? Because that's where the growth and the true revolution is. Now, with this in mind, it's why I'm wary of certain dimensions in populism, because I think they struggle to truly channel Deep England. I can understand the instinct, but I don't think it's getting to the heart of things because, to be blunt, it's not fully spiritually mature yet. The realization hasn't fully happened in us. And this leads to surface level culture wars, and this means the collective mind is sort of locked in a duality. People start arguing over their political ideologies and their side, over allowing the emergent reality to course through. But that emergent reality, i.e. Deep England, or Deep Scotland, or Deep France, depending on where you are, will come through naturally, in my view, because I've learned two very important lessons in life which were hard to learn. Number one, you can't actually change anybody's mind, ever. If you try and change someone's mind, they'll dig their heels in all the more. The human ego gets involved. Very few people will change their mind through intellectual debate or protest. Minds always change themselves. Number two, there's something called an illusion of action. And I learned this in my late 20s when I was really into a woman and I thought, she's so beautiful, I have to be with her. And the relationship wasn't working out. And I kept thinking I'll just do more and more, try and impress her more, be a better guy more, all this sort of stuff. But I had to realise this wasn't working. It was chasing her off more because I was just always present, always trying to be there, always do the right thing. It made me think, I'm better off just withdrawing. I had to learn that lesson over time. And of course you realise when you start to withdraw, you find your own feet anyway. And a lot of guys will use this in the red pill relationship world to get girls back. They'll ignore them and it does work. But I wasn't doing it for those reasons. I was learning a spiritual lesson. You have to learn about your own foundations first and move on with that. Now, again, this is why if we understand these two lessons, or at least as I see them, when we have the coming chaos, it's horrible and it will be brutal and there'll be a lot of suffering. But it's only the chaos that can awaken the correct change, because it's that which will change minds by itself. The arguments need to be there, yes, but it's pain that overrides ideology, because ideology is just a mental abstract thing, really. But the harsh realities of life pierce through these things. Pain is non-ideological. And this is why the chaos will play a role in the development of our future. And of course, with that as well, if you're trying to force people to start thinking down new lines, if you're trying to force them away from Andrew Marr and his delusion, they will just see you as an enemy, But if you make just a solid rational case and don't force it, they will move in time because they will realise that it is the emergent force, Deep England, Deep Scotland, Deep France, Deep Europe, reawakening. And it's that was the true fire that originally created Europe in the first place anyway. And until we can reconnect with that, we're never going to truly be able to grow. And this is why, in my view at least, we are at a very powerful time. And the best thing we can do is start to reconnect with that deep spiritual energy, realign with the tradition, know your history, know your spirituality if you're drawn to that, have a role to play, be positive, community oriented. And we really can be ready for tomorrow. These are some of my views anyway. I'm sure some people don't like this approach, but I think the counter approach will create more trouble than it's worth. Do let me know your thoughts down below if you're interested in the spiritual channel. It's also linked in the description, as is the Substack if you want to join there. I got a free call today in about an hour, so probably haven't got long to join that. Anyway, do take care. Speak to you again soon.